Welcome to the Inner Space Covent Garden talk. Our talk today is Managing Your Priorities Better. There's a subheading to this title, which I think puts everything into context for me. You can do anything, just not everything. In a world of opportunity and possibility, there are just so many things we can do. We really can do anything, but it's not possible or realistic to do everything. There's not enough time or energy. Yet we do try it, right? I think all of us have been down that road. And the result? We may feel overwhelmed or stretched across too many commitments, right? We can do anything, just not everything. If I was to realize this, I'd prioritize better. After all, success, balance, well-being come from focusing on what truly matters. We've asked our speaker to share how to manage our priorities better from his experience. Mark Fleming is joining us from the retreat centre in Oxfordshire for the Brahma Kumaris. He's been meditating for well over 30 years and experimenting with it as an entrepreneur as he's moved along in life. Mark's going to share with us over the next 40 minutes, and after that, he's going to do a short meditation. The whole idea of having a short reflection at the end of the talk is that the ideas that you've heard, for them to filter more deeply into your consciousness so that they become something that you refer back to as a tool, as a technique into your life almost immediately. After that, Mark will take your questions. So please send in your questions via the question and answer link or via the chat, and it will be my pleasure to put those questions to Mark on your behalf. Mark, welcome. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Artie. That's a lovely introduction to the topic, and very happy to be with you all. So I thought in order for you to know why I feel I'm fairly well equipped to talk about managing priorities better is if I paint a very brief picture of my life here at this retreat centre in Oxford. So I arrived here about 2.5 years ago, and with the power of saying yes a little bit too often, perhaps, I've ended up looking after what's called the sound department, which really means the staterooms and all programs that go on, and anything to do with audio, visual, and anything to do with organising or checking regarding the programs. So that takes quite a lot of time and attention, plus all of the before and after details. I manage a long-term store for the kitchen requirements, and I'm very much involved in the cleaning and preparation of the rooms in the house. As well as that, some driving, some cooking, especially at the moment, there'll be lots of mince pies being made, which I generally get the main role to do. So I'm just painting that picture to show that I have these kind of three departments which are very different, and they don't really cross over at all. And in one, I'm the one who gives the orders, but also the one who does the work, which is the sound department, and also the store. And I'm helping someone in the cleaning and accommodation. But what it means is that I have a number of people from different departments who are connected to what I do, and so they have their own requests and demands and needs, and I have mine. And so there's often, well, quite often I live in the grey zone because it's not always that I can just focus exclusively on one thing, because there's so many things which become needed to urgent, and then I have to make a judgment call whether to jump to this thing needed or whether to carry on with what I'm doing. And this happens quite a lot. And along with that, I had my own personal interests of learning language and developing the memory and other things I'm interested in. And so I want to find time for that. So what I've discovered is that the art of prioritization is one of those really kind of simple but really important tasks. And on the surface of it, it doesn't really seem, that much. Is, you just prioritize it, you do it, put it at the top of the list. But I think there's a lot more to it, which is why this talk is here. And I think if we know the background to the whole subject of prioritizing, then it really helps. And I want to start off with clarifying that there's two things. There's priority, what's a priority, and there's what's important and what's urgent. So when I make something a priority, it means, of course, I'm going to do this thing first. But how does it get to that point? Is it urgent or is it important? And there's so many things that are important. They may be important to you, or they may be important to the person you're working for, or in connection with, or family relationship. So there's all different levels of importance, and we have to discern how important each thing is to ourselves, and then whether it gets to urgent. Like, this talk is important, but it didn't become urgent until close to the time of doing it. So there's many things like that. And when something's important and urgent, then hopefully that is definitely on the priority list. So I think it's wise now to determine a few ideas on how something becomes a priority. And it's easy to think in the context of work or business. That's usually quite quantifiable. But as we live in a life where there's many aspects, and it can feel a bit like juggling balls. And if you drop one, then often you end up dropping the whole lot. So in our life, or certainly my life, there's things to consider. For example, relationships, your health and fitness, your state of mind, your any personal issues. There's so many things which, sorry, excuse me, which I need to take care of. And it's like recognizing what's the most important thing for me today and what's the most important thing for me now. Because if I ignore something, for example, if there's some difficulty in a relationship, there's some misunderstanding. So I think, well, I just want to get on with this work. I haven't got time for that. Okay, that sounds reasonable, but it's worth considering that, okay, if I allow this misunderstanding to continue, could this situation become one where it just affects me in my work or in my personal life? Does it affect my levels of stress, my state of mind? And if there's a misunderstanding with someone, that can create such a negative energy. And if it's not dealt with, that affects everything that I do, because it's affecting me personally. And I've had many situations where there's been some misunderstanding, and I could have easily ignored it, because dealing with relationships has never been my strong point. It's only more than the last several years I've kind of really given attention to the importance of that. but by giving value, giving importance to making sure there's that good energy, that peacefulness, there's that kind of friendship or whatever it is that's needed to make sure that that goes on without hindrance as much as possible. That's just one example where that can become a priority where it may not seem like one on the surface. Another thing with priorities is that we are living our lives day to day, and whatever I focus on is going to be a trade-off. For example, you're watching this, thank you, and obviously that's a trade-off for anything else you could be doing at this moment. So whatever we give our time, attention, energy means by definition that energy, that attention can't go elsewhere. And so realizing that everything I do is an investment and therefore automatically requires some renunciation of not giving that energy somewhere else. For that reason, I think it's really important to understand that there's two kinds of prioritizations going on at the same time, in the sense that there's what I'm focusing on, and it's interesting because what I'm focusing on in this moment of time has become a priority because I'm doing it. Now, whether I consciously prioritized or not is another question, but whatever I'm doing means I have made that a priority. Having a cup of tea at some point in time means I made that a priority. So we are continually creating or making things priorities. Just normal life. And then we have the bigger things, of course, which we premeditate on and decide consciously this is a priority. So understanding that everything is a trade-off in this way, it just makes us a little bit more conscious of what we're using our energy for. Now, the two things I was trying to get to is the one thing is the thing the actual activity, the action I'm doing, but the other one is who I am as I'm doing it. And for me, and I think for many people, this is actually very important, but it's hidden. Very often we can so much give in to the force of stress, worry, anxiety, there's kind of negative energies to fulfill a task, some need, some priority. And so we get it done. And at the end of that, there's usually a feeling of relief, maybe peace, maybe a sense of attainment. But it's really worth noticing what energy am I having, or what state of mind am I in, same thing really, whilst fulfilling this priority. Because the task will finish. The feeling I have whilst performing that task, that continues. It's like I've filled myself more with that. For example, if I get myself all stressed and uptight about something, then that stress, that worry is going deeper into my consciousness for the whole duration that I basically live it. I experience that. And particularly as I've been meditating for, like I already said, over 30 years, and a big part of that is self-reflection and observation. So I know myself pretty well. And it's really clear to me that what feeling I have whilst I'm in conversation, the feeling I have while I'm doing a task, the feeling I have whilst I'm even thinking, whatever action I'm carrying out, there is a feeling, there's an awareness Now, is that something I want in myself or not? I think it's a good question to ask the self, because the bottom line is that that is making me me. So the energy with which I do everything is accumulating inside and it's molding my personality. And it has been as I've been living my life. So you could say that each one of us is the sum total of not just our past actions, but our past feelings, our past experiences, our past habits. So it's something I think very useful to look into. So on that basis, it makes sense then to, as much as I can, do everything with a with consciously, knowingly, with enthusiasm, with energy. Now, let's supposing that what you're doing, you don't actually really want to do it because it's a priority, not so much because you want it to be, but because someone else wants it to be. And that someone else is your supervisor, your boss, your this, your that. But for whatever reason, you have been given something as a priority. Now we have a choice. And I remember many, many years ago, it was actually Artie's father, Satish, who shared with me, I knew him very well, who shared with me that this wonderful, wonderful uh, principle that whatever you do your best, and the next time do better. And connected with that was whatever he said, whatever you hold in your mind, in your awareness, so you become. Whatever you hold in your awareness, so you become. And he said that to me, must be 25 years ago or something. But I've just kept that with me and I've shared it so much because I think it's such a powerful principle. What is in your awareness? It means what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What's your attitude? What kind of thoughts are you having? And we can easily have some kind of negative feeling if someone's given us a load of work, made something a priority when I was doing something else. But the quicker I have the thought, okay, this has been given, but I now choose to do it. And this is something else he said, Satish said. It doesn't matter how the task comes to you, but you make it your own. Okay, I now choose to do this. And it may seem like playing with words, but I have observed in myself that it really dramatically changes the attitude and the feelings. So, key aspect is embrace each task as if it's your own and emerge some positive feeling about it. And this connects then to another deeper aspect, which is what is your purpose? What is your why? And when I say it mean purpose or why, it's really connected to a deeper purpose of life. And without going into too much of a philosophical slant on this, but even the most uh, like corporate financial priority, underneath that there is a deeper why, a deeper purpose. And to cut a story fairly short, I think almost all of our deeper purposes are connected to self-worth, love, peace, happiness, the original virtues, you could say. So we're really looking for things like that, the qualities like that. And so when I give a little bit of time, just to, before starting something, just stop, set the mind, ask the self, what do I want to feel whilst doing this? What virtue, what quality is really important whilst doing this task? And that helps an awful lot. Okay, next, another point is, and I've been practicing this one quite a lot, is to remove the word importance. Now, in our mind, we apply importance to people, to tasks, to places, to events, to positions, to some things in the past of our lives. But whenever and wherever I apply importance, it means I put something, someone higher up in my mind, like on a pedestal, or it's dominating somehow in my consciousness. And therefore, I have an unbalanced relationship to that thing I have put higher up in my mind. Because in reality, nothing is more important than the other. And I'm not not contradicting what I said earlier about importance and urgency, because there's a different aspect. It's about applying value, maybe use the word value, to people, to places, to things in their context to you, rather than using that feeling of importance. Because if something is really important, it just creates stress, it just creates worry. It can easily create feelings of inferiority. Or conversely, if I think I'm important and my task is important, then ego comes, which is also unhealthy. So when I start to remove that importance word, what I've noticed in myself is a sense of kind of equanimity. It's not equanimity because that's a very high or deep spiritual stage, but it's towards that. It's like a state where you're much easier going, you're lighter, you're not so attached to the outcomes of the task. And it actually frees the self to operate more smoothly, calmly. And because you're in a much nicer state of mind, then it's like the clarity is there, insight can work. Another aspect, and this is something which I know I've been working on. I think several people who are involved in the retreat center and the Brahma Kumaris in general, and many people work on, is preparation. So preparation for dealing with the priorities. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that whatever I'm focusing on is my current priority. Well, we all know there's certain things which just are big priorities. So yeah, take the importance out of that, but it's still, it's got its value. It has to be done. So I need to prepare. And it's worth noticing what is my habit or tendency towards priorities. Do I put them off until the last moment? That's fine if it works, but if I'm stressing, worrying, panicking all the way for days and days, weeks and weeks, then I might as well just prepare. And that gives a sense of comfort, a sense of relaxation. And there's a thing about fear that one of the best ways of dealing with fear is just to come into action, do something. And the reality is, I think, that we all experience a lot of fear in different ways. And whenever there's some procrastination or denial going on regarding certain tasks or activities, then that procrastination really means there's some fear involved. I'm a fear of failure, uh, fear of which is connected to fear of being shown up, fear of experiencing being worthless. In fact, many of the issues that we deal with come down to kind of deep state of unworthiness and fear of abandonment. This is what psychologists generally agree on. These two main fears, abandonment and worthlessness. And of course, they're real in the sense we feel them, but they're not real in the sense that there's something that we have to experience anymore. So recognizing that just coming into action is going to help me so much in dealing with anything like delay or procrastination. So there's the preparation specific for the priority, but there's also the ongoing preparation. And this is like meditation, understanding the self, giving time out, understanding your mind. So the general preparation is actually preparing your consciousness. And I think this is really the main work we need to do, because when I prepare my inner self in the sense of knowing who I am, knowing my kind of hot buttons, and starting to work to replace those triggers by things which are more likely to produce experiences of peace or calm, or at least a space where I can uh, create a more positive thought rather than a negative one. And that general preparation is like developing the self. And so we become more capable. And what I found in myself here, arrived here means in this retreat center, I arrived about nearly 3 years ago, and as mentioned, took on many, many roles. And first of all, I was feeling quite lost and a bit overwhelmed, and so many requests and different directions. But I quickly decided, now this is like you would call, well, what do I call it? Like a playground, a place of learning. Yeah, more a place of learning. I decided definitely this is a place to grow in many different ways. And so each scene is like an opportunity for me to use some speciality, some virtue, some kind of inner power like discernment, decision, tolerance, facing the situation. These are known as powers of the self. So it's all opportunities, and I'm pretty sure that all of you have also got plenty of opportunities when you have to tolerate, you have to face, you have to decide. And so I'm sure there's no shortage of opportunities. And just that attitude, this is a place for growth, that changed me a lot. And there are a couple of personalities I found especially challenging. But then as I looked beyond the immediacy of the challenging scene, the words, etc., and just seeing this other being, this other soul, this other consciousness, also on a journey. And it just gave me that sense that we're all kind of in the same boat. We're all doing our best. We're all trying to get on. And then we've all got our own different ways and means and personality traits. So in the end of the day, it just taught me don't take anything personally, because when we do, it kind of reverberates in our consciousness, and it can just upsets and it ruins my clarity. I feel disturbed and I'm not in a good condition for the next task. So looking after the self, preparing the self in a general way really helps for the specific tasks that I need to do. A few other ideas to, to to bear in mind for prioritizations is something I learned fairly recently. This idea of that we've got our goals, the vision, the target, and so that's the ideal. So that's known as the ceiling. I learned this from a fellow called Dr. Benjamin Hardy. That's the ceiling is your goals, your vision, whatever it is trying to achieve. And then the other thing is the floor. So the floor is where you are, and the ceiling is where you want to get to. And the floor represents your current systems, your current habits, your current attitude, your current state of mind or consciousness. And in some way, you can reduce it to what you say yes to, what you say no to. That's the floor. And so to shift my floor up towards the ceiling, and let's say my ceiling is, in this instance, my ceiling is I want to be someone who remains peaceful, calm, in a loving state of mind. I want to be someone who's proactive, who uh, discerns uh, accurately and quickly regarding priorities. I kind of kind of work my life in such a way that it's a dance, and that whatever I do, I bring love, I bring lightness, I bring happiness, I bring entertainment to it. And this is what I do. I mean, not all the time, but this is where I'm trying to reach to. So this is the ceiling. So then what has to change? What kind of habits? For example, supposing when there's the pressure of time, I start complaining. So I'm saying yes, excuse me, I'm saying yes to complaining. I'm giving myself permission to complain. Is complaining useful? Well, I don't think so, because it takes up time, takes up energy, and it creates a negative relationship in my mind with this task I'm about to do, which is not going to help it. So by saying no to complaining, then it means I've moved my floor up. So the floor is what I say yes or no to, the floor is my standards of life. And this is the reality check. The ceiling is always the dream, the ideal, it's in the future, etc., etc. But there's a powerful principle which we actually discussed in the earlier chit chat of bringing the future into the present, in the sense of that the ideal that I'm looking for. Because when I do that, then I'm going to feel so much more effective, so much more calm, so much in a state of attainment. Otherwise, what I've noticed about myself, and I think it affects probably most people, is we are delaying happiness. We are delaying peace. We are delaying fulfillment. That this thing has become important and urgent, and so I've got to do this fulfill this priority, do this task, and then I will feel happy, relaxed, or successful. But we do that not just in specific tasks, we do that in many, many aspects. The delaying fulfillment, delaying happiness, delaying peace. I will just get here, do this, be with this person Friday night, whatever it is for each one. But this is an illusion. I mean, of this, I am absolutely convinced. It is an illusion to delay fulfillment, because either I feel fulfilled or I don't. And so if I realize that this moment, this moment now is where my power lies, and this moment I can create however I like through the power of awareness, the power of understanding. So in this current moment of time, I can choose what to feel. I can choose my attitude. And just being aware of the authority that we have over our own feelings, our own mind, our own attitude, it kind of brings you to a place and a state in the self where you feel empowered. You're the master getting the things done. You're inside, you're in charge, and that is the task. And we say like a relationship with the task, not a bondage. So I think I have used up my time, if I'm not correct.
You can go on for another 5 minutes. That's quite all right. And then lead us to a meditation if you'd like.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. There's one of the things which we in general work on within this retreat center, within the Brahma Kumaris as a whole, is this idea that the self by nature is peace. And this principle that I am by nature a being of peace, that ties in really beautifully with what I've just been sharing. The ceiling and the floor. Everyone, I am certain, wants peace. And as mentioned many times, we're doing things to basically get our life in order so as to experience peace. So it's worth asking the question, how would you feel if you were to experience a deep state or a beautiful state of peace right now? Or what has to happen to experience peace? Now, when I ask those questions, particularly the last one, what has to happen, then I may come up with all different answers as to this person must change or this thing has to work out in my life. But that's the old pattern being played out. That's my kind of physical perception, thinking that the physical world has to be a certain way in order for me to experience internal peace. So we've been trying that for probably most of our lives, and I would hazard a guess it hasn't worked out too well. We've only experienced momentary peace, or short periods of it at the best. But realizing that the inner being, the inner self, really is peace, then it's like invoking or emerging that ancient memory inside, returning to that idea. As is your awareness, so you become. So bring the awareness of peace in the mind, and we automatically become that because it's like resonating with a very ancient memory inside. And then it's like imagining how would you like to live your life dealing with the tasks, the people, the deadlines, and all of these things. Because it's not that we're going to all disappear to the Himalayas and live a life as a renunciate, but it's about being equipped in such a way that I feel confident, I feel happy, I trust myself that I can be effective, I can fulfill my tasks and remain in my peace. I remember one, it's a really brilliant salesperson, said he only sells two things. He sells loads of things, but he said, I only sell two things. And that is, I sell confidence and trust. I sell, sorry, confidence and certainty. Confidence and certainty. Confidence that he is capable and certainty that he will deliver whatever he's saying he will sell. And that's not just in actual sales, but that's in our whole human experience. We are basically relating with each other and selling confidence and certainty. And when I'm not experiencing that, then life becomes more challenging simply because my energy is uneven. My energy is saying two things that I want something to happen, I want some help, I want to do this, but at the same time, there's this hesitant thought or lack of self-trust or lack of deserving. And so these things are getting in the way of my more positive energy. So it comes out as like a turbulence, a a vibrational turbulence, and therefore other people respond in varied ways. The drama of life, you could say, doesn't know how to respond to us. In fact, it responds according to what we are. This is another wonderful system, principle, that life responds according to what you are, not what you want. And so another reason why looking after the self and giving priority, first priority to my state of consciousness, my state of mind, is so important. And the task, obviously, it will start, it will finish, it will go, it will be lost in the annuals of history. Just like your most embarrassing moments, they've now become history. They may even be kind of entertainment that you speak to people, but at the time it may have been excruciating. So it's like everything is our mindset, our attitude, and just realizing that we have so much inside capable to deal with any event, any situation. I think this really helps. And so to kind of come to the fulcrum of prioritization, know your purpose, discover more deeply who you are on the inside, know what's valuable to you, realize this is a play or drama of life, and you have to play your part in it. Use your virtues, your specialities in the task at hand with the realization whatever you are, whatever you hold in your mind, so you become. And so this kind of background will really help us with our knowing our priorities. And if someone comes to us with a task, it may seem important, it may be urgent, but when you've got that stability, that trust, that kind of sense of personal authority, then not only are you can say no, having discerned the validity of the request. It really helps in many ways. Because sometimes I have to say, someone asks me something is really important, but I have to say no. Because for me, I don't think I'm the right person for that task. So it's very liberating to have that awareness. Okay, so now I think time for a little meditation. So wherever you're sitting, be comfortable but alert. Take a deep breath in and breathe out slowly, relaxing completely. And breathe normally, being aware that you are in this present moment, the ongoing state of now. There's your past, there's your future. There's always things to do. but to know that we have wisely chosen to give this time to the self, to the one who is living the life. So ask yourself the question, what do you really want to experience? What do you want to feel? And to realize that whatever the answer is, that lies within. Imagine the feeling of being so peaceful, so calm, so relaxed. Imagine that feeling of being self-assured, confident, a sense of certainty and trust in the self. What would that feel like? And to know that all these pure positive feelings are the natural nature in the self. Our inherent property. So imagine how wonderful it would feel dealing with each scene in your life calmly, peacefully, joyfully, carrying out each task, having made it your own, applying energy and enthusiasm, creativity, knowing that every good feeling applied to every task is growing inside you. So why not give such priority to the self, to one's state of mind, to feelings of peace, to holding a state of higher awareness. For truly we are free to be who we wish to be. So who are you? being of love, a being of peace, a being of power. And allow those feelings to absorb deep inside. As we become a little more present conscious. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, for leading us through that meditation, but also for sharing those insights. I wasn't expecting some of them for sure. So that was really lovely to hear. Thank you. We have a few questions that have come in, and there's one question with two slightly different angles. So let me put it to you. It's two different people asking a similar question. Um, Whenever I try to focus on self-care, meditation, spiritual reading, my mind keeps jumping to chores, paperwork, or other things I should be doing. I struggle to stay present. How can I manage this? And there's another side to this that I'd like to put to you while I'm here. In other words, and somebody else is asking, in other words, I want to make a relationship with myself succeed, but my internal monkey mind is haunting me at times, saying, I'm not good at what I do, or my past is a reflection of my future. Could you give some insights on that?
Certainly, thank you. Very lovely questions. So, when any kind of negative thinking comes up, whether it's in general or whether it's in at the time of meditation, is to kind of qualify it, not spend too much time, but qualify it in the sense that you can ask, well, are these thoughts true? There's can't remember her name. There's the one teacher who gave, I think it's called the works, gave these 3 or 4 questions to ask herself in relation to basically belief systems inside, which most of these thoughts are based on. So is it true? Is it really true? And by that time, the answer should be no, it's not really true if it's a negative thought. And then what's an alternative thought? So it's recognizing that we always have agency, means we always have authority on ourselves, but we have given away our authority so many times for such a long time that the habit is to be subservient to the power of the mind. So the mind's going to take a bit of time to learn that you're back in charge. So here it becomes a regular practice. Now, when you're practicing meditation or any kind of thought exercise and you haven't done it for a while, then your mind will just ramble off here, there, come up with negative thoughts, contradictory thoughts to what you're suggesting. But to realize it's about consistency. Consistency, perseverance, outpaces everything else. And it's worth recognizing that when you sit for meditation, you're doing 2 things at the same time. One is you're gradually enhancing your power of meditation just because you're doing it. But also, you are teaching your consciousness that you are disciplined. So even if you sit, even if your mind goes everywhere, the fact you sit, say consistently each day or however often you have chosen, then you develop an inner power from that discipline. So anything you do consistently gives you power, energy. And the more general sense of all of these other thoughts that come out, this lack of trust in the self, etc. Just to realize that it's all of the old negative belief systems that are manifesting in thoughts and also feelings. To counteract those is really useful to ask a question. For example, we often say in our meditations, I am a peaceful being. Now, there's a chance that your mind may say, well, no, I'm not. And I've got all sorts of examples to prove it. So instead, use questions. Ask, what would it feel like if I was a peaceful being? Now, there's nothing to argue with that because you're asking, what would it feel like? And our minds are very obedient. They will get the answer to any question. If you ask, why am I so useless? The mind will run off and get the answer to that question. So ask the right questions to get the good answers. So I think that's a good starting point.
Wow, ask the right question to get a good answer. I love it. Thank you very, very much. I love